Hello everyone, and welcome back after quite a long break. I did uh, since January, so I didn't upload any videos. I was pretty busy, but now I hope I can return to a normal, regular schedule here. So originally, if I can make a video every 4 days, or I can post every 4 days, that would be, I believe, a realistic goal. We will see what happens, but that's my goal for now. And in the meantime, I also reached 300 subscribers. So thanks everyone who followed, who liked the channel, who commented. After the video, I will also answer to your comments or questions. And yeah, now I also encourage you to comment, because I will check the channel more often, and will be here, or in case you have some suggestions, you saw some interesting game which could fit to the theme of this channel, just feel free to recommend it to me, and I may take a look and do a video about it if I also see that it could be useful. Okay, so in today's video, I brought some games of Grandmaster Uhlmann in actually the most typical King's Indian Averbakh variation structure, or endgame. So let's see what I mean by that. Okay, so this particular game started from one c4 move order, but we are quickly back to Averbakh. So bishop g5, c5, d5, and e6. So this is the old main line. Many games, like 50, maybe even more, and 40 years ago, this was a really big tabia at that moment. So here we play queen d2. Black takes on d5, ed5, so queen b6 is the modern line as it is discussed in the course, but okay, back then everyone basically played with rook e8. So the first game we are following is Polugaevsky against Uhlmann. We played in 1970 in Amsterdam. So knight f3, bishop g4, so very logical move. It's very important to play this move with black, because if white is able to castle and play h3, then this bishop will be just struggling on the board, so black has less space. So the more minor pieces he can trade, the better and easier for black. So bishop g4, castle, knight d7, h3, bishop takes, still a lot of games for this position. And Uhlmann went a6 in this game. So hitting some b5 ideas maybe in the future to activate the pieces. So yeah, here, if you are familiar with the course, you definitely know what we play, and it is a4. So we just simply don't want to worry about any b5 break. So this structure is extremely beneficial for us, and so basically there is one weak pawn here that's on d6, and otherwise it's very tough to create counterplay for black. So black went queen e7, and here actually rook a to e1 was played, which is a good move. So for example, in a game Portish against Gligoric, so Gligoric had quite a few games in this line, so he believed quite a lot in black's possession. So the game of Portish went like a5, which is definitely a normal move, queen f8, and Portish went for rook a3, which doesn't look illogical, but I believe it's already a dubious move. I mean, not the idea. I mean, the idea to play rook b3 to put some pressure on b7 is nothing so bad about it. But what Gligoric did at this moment is pretty smart. So first he plays knight e5. So this is attacking the bishop on f3 and also the pawn here. So Portish played bishop to e2. And now the next move I really like from black, it's knight e to d7. So basically he's just going back, saying that knight e4 is the idea now, and he wants to trade minor pieces, then open the long diagonal for the bishop. And basically if black can change pair of minor pieces like this, he's almost completely fine. So the knight on f6 is very problematic, and it's kind of tough to do anything. I mean, of course, the bishop goes back to f3, then it's just a repetition. I mean, how else to protect the square? I mean, bishop can go to d3, but then the knight is returning again to e5. So this is what we want to. I mean, this trade is a little bit better for white if black takes the bishop, but still it's a pair of minor pieces which we really don't want here. So it was very nice from Gligoric. Portish played the bishop e3 in the game, but after knight e4, I believe black was completely fine, and the game ended as a draw quite soon. So therefore we play rook a to e1, and what we have to know here is to keep minor pieces and trade heavy pieces. So of course black's heavy pieces are not really struggling because the e file is open, so basically that's fine, but the knights are struggling very much without outposts, and the bishop is also, I mean, it's a fine bishop, but there is not much in the long diagonal, to be honest. So queen f8 was played, bishop d1, also typical move. Later we want to push these pawns up and create some threats on the king side, and anyway the bishop is just silly on f3. So now rook takes e1, rook e1, rook e8, rook takes on e8, queen takes on e8, so it's very good. And then bishop c2 was played in this game. So black played the knight to b6, attacking c4, maybe a4 could be hanging, so of course just b3. Everything is protected very nicely. And black cannot trade the minor pieces. So knight d7. Now bishop f4 was played, attacking on d6. So queen e7, and now queen e2. So queens are also heavy pieces. We don't need black's queen on the board to, protect d6 and maybe in some good day create a counterplay. So we just trade. This is absolutely according to what we want. Queen takes on e7, king takes on e7. And here it's an interesting moment, because white has to make a choice, and I believe in most of the cases this is a move which is good to make, and it was played in this game, so it gives more chances for white to break down black's position. It's not like that black wants to play a5 in the next move, but it's definitely in the air to play a5 and b6 at some moment, or rather b6. Because if a5, then knight b5 at least in this position. But if the knight goes, then also a5. So playing a5 means that the queen side is also not completely closed. And since the battlefield is like extremely narrow, so to say, so like there are 7 pawns in the board, like there is not many options to operate with. So we will push pawns on the king side, but it can be very beneficial for us to have some future, maybe b4 break in the future. So a5 was played. I like this move. And yeah, I mean, this position is basically, position for two results, as they say. So, black is defending. He can hard. I mean, it's unless we blunder something very big, which normally never happens. I didn't really see any black wins from such position. Then we win or draw, and that's very tough to play. I mean, mentally, from the black side, like just should we wait? Should we create some active? Which pawn to push? And it's kind of impossible to figure out. I would say here, black played h5. Hard to say once again. I mean, I believe it cannot really be bad. So anyway, white would go g4, and if basically black wants to trade a pair of pawns, I mean, it's not illogical. So h5, bishop d2, freeing the ways for the f pawn, knight to e8, white played g3. I like this move, so there is no rush. I mean, it's not about creating something quickly here, obviously. And if we start with f4, something to consider is h4 for sure. So now our pawns here is not pawn structure here is not ideal, and if black can play something like f5, bishop f6, and hold on to this pawn, I mean, even this one is not like obvious, to be honest, that this is so great for black, because I mean, again, we have all the time in the world. We play bishop e1, king f1, maybe bring the knight over to f3, and then h4 can be a weakness. So this is also very hard to make, but maybe it's possible for black. At least positionally, we don't have to take this risk. So g3, bishop d4, king g2, knight g7, f4 was played in the game. Maybe I would have preferred to play with g4, because then it's harder to go with f5 for black. But again, it's very hard to say. It's all about patience and trying here and there, and it's much easier to play when basically you cannot lose and you're not risking. So g4 I like a little bit better in this situation. So f4, knight f5. Next move is a little bit strange from Polugaevsky, knight d1. I believe he could have just played king to f3. The main thing is that knight e3 is a threat in this position. And another question is that what happens in case of bishop takes on f5. But I believe in this particular position there is bishop takes on c3. Even gf5 is not obvious whether it's double pawns can be extremely good in defense. And let's say you put your king on g6 and you wait for g4. What is white doing? But I mean, what could be even easier is to, of course, if bishop d7, bishop d2, this is even though white will end up with an extra pawn, this is a complete draw. I mean, this pawn will never make it to b4. So yeah, it's not good. We have to keep the minor pieces. He did with knight e1. So black went knight h6, king to f3, and black played f5. I believe logical move. So if he would play some move with the king, then we play g4, and our place is progressing. So probably trade is coming, and then we have ideas both with g5 and f5 at some moment. And most probably it will be g5 and then preparing for f5. Of course, f5 is not our main idea when knight e5 is a check, so probably we will sidestep with the king, bring the knight, and so on, and prepare for a break there. And it's, I believe, very useful that black also shouldn't forget about b4 idea. So f5 was the game, bishop d3, king d8, knight e3, and black played king e7. So again, it's a huge decision for black at this moment whether to take this knight or not. Like, logically speaking, I would say it's very tempting to take, because the position is kind of close, so the knights are maybe more useful than bishops, but it's a very committal decision, and with this, black basically really saying that he has a fortress here because he has 0 active ideas. So let's say king e7, and then now g4 is very hard to make. So we try in the other side with b4. And yeah, it's a good question whether it's a win or whether it's not a win. It looks scary for black. So we have ideas like bishop c2, bishop a4. We also have idea to play b5 and then b6. Okay, in that case, we obviously have to be extremely careful that it's not, that the pawn breaks are completely gone, and then we have this idea of bishop c2, bishop a4, bishop c6 in that case, but it has to be well calculated, I would say. So better to keep the tension and go first bishop c2, bishop a4, and yes, it's probably at some moment bishop c3, hinting at ideas of bishop g7 to kick the knight from h6, and once it is going away, then g4 is again an idea. So I mean, to foresee all of these threats and understand whether it's enough to make a draw or not is really difficult. So black did not take eventually. King e7, knight c2, bishop b2, king e3. Okay, now players were just shuffling a little bit to make move 40. Bishop b2, knight g2, knight e7, knight h4, king f6, king e3, knight f7. Very strange move, I have to say. So especially if you are in time trouble, you give a check, king goes, and then you go back. So you don't change the position, you keep the knight here to control g4 square. So black went knight f7, bishop c2, and bishop a1. So yeah, again, not much is happening. Black went king e2, and probably at this position, black is already making decisive mistake, which is quite surprising. It's move 41. I mean, maybe this was still the period when they had adjourned moves, and you had to put the move to an envelope, and okay, black did it a little bit carelessly. So he played bishop b2. I mean, the correct move is obviously knight h6 because this g4 has to be addressed. And now it's a question how to break it with white. So g4 is not happening in the near future, but we can try to go for b4 idea now. So for example, I looked at knight g2, king f7, knight e1, king f6. So black is just waiting. Knight d3, and if black continues waiting, then to meet b4 is extremely awkward. So basically, if you are not playing a move, then I am playing b5 and b6. And now we have more minor pieces than I mean, we have a knight on the board, not only bishops, and then we will go bishop a4, then maybe knight f2, king f3, g4 idea. Also, we have immediately now bishop a4 attacking the knight, and then the pawn will be falling on c5. So, and in case of cb4, bishop b4, this pawn is hanging. Okay, sorry, I have a pawn call. Okay, so king e7. Not very professional. So I'm just waiting a little bit, sorry. And then c5. Okay, sorry about it. Okay, so c5 here breaks through, and after dc, knight c5, knight takes, bishop takes, and there is a lot of space for white's bishops to enter. Also, the king can join, so this is probably just lost for black. So in this case of knight h6, we can go for this b4 idea, but it's not not that easy. And of course, we shouldn't forget, like, for example, if you put our bishop to d1, so something like this, for example, then the bishop is, can be joining on a4, or in case of g4, it's also hitting in this way. So I believe it's quite a nice setup of the bishops. So instead, black went bishop b2, bishop e1 was played from white. Actually, it was completely not needed at this moment, so black forgot about this g4. It was pretty much crushing at this moment. So after h takes, and so there is no knight h6. That is extremely important. G5 check, and otherwise the pawn is hanging. You have to take g4, knight takes on g6, knight h6, knight h4, bishop d4, and king f1, for example. So black has no moves here. That's the key. So the king is simply coming to g3, and then simplest is probably bishop d1 and collect this pawn on g4. Black cannot really do much against it. So basically, this something similar happened in the game after one more mistake from black, who failed to play knight h6. So g4, take, f take, g4, and now knight takes on g6. So black played king g7. In case of knight h6, it's important that we have bishop h4, king g7, and then bishop e7, picking up this pawn. So king g7, knight h7, knight h4 with the idea of knight f5 check. But in case of knight h6, this check would have come anyway, and the knight f6, black is holding this pawn, but now it's losing the whole queen side. So king f8, bishop f5, knight f6, bishop c8, knight d8, knight f5. So now d6 is a problem, knight h5, and bishop d2, bishop d4, and okay, black and white just took on d4 because this pawn is falling, and then d4 pawn will fall as well. So he resigned here. So this was the game Polugaevsky Uhlmann in 1970, and Uhlmann was with the black pieces. And the famous story, which actually I was also not aware of very recently, but I was told in a Chessable forum, that in the next 2 years Uhlmann played this opening with the white pieces and won 2 games. So basically he lost with black, but then he started to play it with white and won twice in this same structure or endgame. So okay, so let's return to this position and let's see how those games went. So rook e8. So here, h3 here, 6a4. So everything is the same up to this moment. At least I hope I'm showing it correct. Yes, everything is the same. So basically till move 18, move number 18, everything was the same. But okay, these are just very logical moves. And here instead of bishop c2, what we have seen, Uhlmann played bishop f4 first. I mean, the significance of the concrete move is like almost zero. So it's like we saw this move one move later in that game and now immediately. So it's just the same thing. Queen e7, queen e2, king f8, takes. And there is this important move which Uhlmann experienced how unpleasant this move is. So he went a5 here. So again, not allowing black to close queenside, not immediately, but some moment in the future he could, and keeping bishop a4 options and b4 options. So knight e8, bishop d2, h5, king f1, extremely similar game, like a mirror game, knight d7, bishop c2, knight e8, knight e2, here f3. I like f3 to be honest, and the reason is that, okay, so let's see the next few moves. King f2 here, here. So the reason is that in case of f5, white has an extra, so to say, supporter of the g4 break. So this can be quite smart not to, in general, this is like a slow way to break down black's position. So just to even to test waters with f3 could be very interesting. So and see if black wants f5 or doesn't want, and if wants, then we have once again much easier way to go with g4. So I would seriously consider going g4 at some moment, maybe moving the knight first to a4 or something. So black cannot take here, but even if takes, it's once again not clear what it does. So okay, Uhlmann decided, okay, let's go f4 anyway. Maybe just following that game, but he lost. Bishop to d3. It's really the same thing. And okay, if knight moves to f6 and towards h6, it's the same game. But here black decided to take on c3. Bishop takes on c3, and knight f6 again. We see how this goes. So bishop e1, king f7, king e3, king e7, bishop c2, king f7, and now without this b4 idea, this game is just a draw. So this knight is perfectly controlling g4. We are never going to make any break there, and even if we do, then it will lead all trading all the pieces, so it will be not enough. So we have to try on the other side. C takes b4, bishop b4, knight c5, king d4, knight d7. So black keeps this blockade, bishop d1. So that's why it's good that we force good to play on two sides, that we force black pieces to hold on to the queen side and to the c5 square, while in the meantime we can create something in the other side of the board. I mean, it may be enough, may not be enough, but it is unpleasant. So king to f6, king to e3. So basically this, I believe, introduces one more idea, which probably black was very afraid of at this moment, and that's to bring the bishop to d4, I believe, or at least to give a check in a given moment, and the king can run towards g5, and at some we keep also the gf option, and it's very hard to foresee once again that it's enough to hold this position or not with black. Yeah, so it's not easy. Also, this gf bishop h5 and bishop going from there is an idea. And probably objectively it should be a draw, but very difficult. At least in practical play, of course. Computer will most probably just hold this position, but for humans it's really not easy. So black played b6. I mean, best strategy anyway was just to wait with the king, and then white would just follow this way with the king, I believe, towards h4. Then again black has to make a decision. And if king f6, then at some moment check on the long diagonal and we enter, or take on f5. Probably holdable, but tricky. But black went b6, which is not correct. So in a way, it looks correct because it changes more material and maybe even a passed pawn for black. But it will create some additional weaknesses, as we will see. So gf, and bishop takes on c5. So that's a very easy move to miss, I would say, because it looks very anti-positional, and this is our better bishop on b4 because the other one is restricted by our central pawns. So it looks like that after bishop takes c5, this is just a draw. But in fact, black has big troubles. So after dc, of course, it is bishop a4, hitting the knight, and the pawn is lost. So if the knight takes, then the pawn is lost immediately. Even though this was the game, I mean, black tried to hold this strong knight, because the problem is that if bc, then there is bishop a4. So that is super unpleasant move. And yeah, I mean, if the knight goes in this direction, then we play bishop here and get the pawn. And if the knight goes in this direction, then we go king f3. And the problem is that the knight is stalemated, right? So let's say king g6, king g3, and black will be in zugzwang. Bishop will come to e8 at some moment. Let's say now. So king has to go here, here, and now black can choose how to lose. But so let's say king h6, and then we have, for example, bishop a4. Black goes here. We go here. So just losing a move. The king goes here, and then we go here, for example. And now the knight cannot move. King has to go backwards, and we enter and win. So that was the problem here. So black decided to try this knight takes on c5, but then ab, a5, bishop c2, king e7, and yeah. So basically, this is the thing of two weaknesses. So black has a weakness here, and another weakness for him is to stop our pawn. And normally, two weaknesses are enough to win the game. And yeah, Uhlmann quite convincingly converted this game. So this was the first one in 1971 in Hastings, and in and it was against Grigorich. So Grigorich was one of the, or if not the biggest master of defending this position for black, but even he did not manage to hold. So it just shows that it's really, really not easy. And in 1972 was the other game where he played against Uhlmann, played against Ulf Andersson, who top 5 endgame player of all times, I would say. And I'm not saying anything big. You can make a case probably for even higher. Okay, like Carson and Capablanca and Karpov. So okay, top 5 I believe is fair for Ulf Andersson. So this game went with 8-6, but very similar things. So bishop f4, queen a5 here, e6, and basically at this moment we arrive at a very similar structure. And again, this a5 was played, like very early. So I believe this is Uhlmann from his experience from that loss, that this a5 is super unpleasant. So knight d7, h3 takes, rook e8, queen a4. Okay, not needed, but it's fine. Bishop e2. The main thing is again to trade heavy pieces and not to trade minor pieces, and that is perfectly followed, that rule. So takes, knight e8, bishop d1, bishop e5, bishop c2, king d8. Now he brings back the queen. You see that it's not like anybody is in a rush here. So king f1, preparing f4, knight g8, b3, now f4, bishop f6, takes. So again, we got this type of position, and here black's knights are actually quite unfortunately plays. So normally one knight is at least on d7 to control this c5 square. I mean, now it's really not nice. Of course, f5, knight f6, knight d7, such moves are coming. But Uhlmann decided to go b4 right away. I'm not sure about this move. I mean, it's interesting and it's very challenging for black, and it led to a very quick victory against a very strong player. But objectively speaking, I believe g4 is pretty strong. So if we can play g4 without black being able to trade one pawn, or black being able to force us to make some serious work to play g4, it's just a huge achievement for us. So g4, and then we will bring the king, maybe bishop e1, and then push h pawn as well. And just it will be really, really tough for black to establish any sort of blockade. So this position is extremely hard already. Not sure that this can be even objectively. Like if we put two super strong computers, I maybe would bet on a win for white. So instead b4. Okay, sorry, just 1 second. Sorry about it. So b4. C takes b4, knight a4, knight f6, knight b6. So now knight d7 is stopped. Bishop d8, bishop b4. So all of this looks very tempting, because I mean we already have a weakness on d6. Maybe some knight c8 is coming, bishop a4 is coming, but in general endgames, if you play so concrete and so quickly and forcefully, then you really have to make sure that it works, because if just one small mistake, then game can just also fizzle out to a draw. And I believe it could have happened here. So bishop takes b6, ab, and black played king f8, which probably is already a losing move, but black had a very nice way to save the game here, and that is knight d7. And from afar, like b4 happened 5 moves ago, so from afar to miss such a move is extremely normal, I would say. So, and because the point is that after bishop a4, black takes this pawn on b6, and after bishop takes on e8, he's not losing a piece, because after king f8, the bishop cannot come here and also cannot come here. So the bishop is trapped. It has to be given up. And yeah, this position, even though the engine prefers white, I would say it is just a draw. Of course, it requires a little bit deeper analysis just to say that it's so confidently, but I believe this position after b5. So very importantly, there is no c5, because knight f6 is picking up the pawn on d5. And after cb, ab, or king d3, so eventually this pawn may fall, but so let me just give a quick example that I have a very big suspicion that this position is probably a draw. So okay, even though like it's also like I wouldn't be super comfortable to go for this, but probably this pawn is not enough to win. But okay, it has to be analyzed if the king can somehow go in that way, but I don't really believe in that. But like, even from this, white is far to reach this. So this kind of surprising knight d7, which probably was missed by both players, was correct. Instead, king f8 was played, but then c5 is very, very strong. And yeah, so that is some very nice line. If d takes c5, then bishop takes. So if king g7 is pretty bad, because bishop d4. So it's much better to play king g8, and here computer comes up with a fascinating concept to play bishop d4. So of course black has threats like knight d7, for example. It doesn't look so easy, but bishop d4, so knight takes d5, bishop e4, knight f6, bishop f3, and basically he is saying that black is stuck here. So the king is just not in time to run to d6, because if king f8, then g4, g5 is a threat. The knights are, connected to each other because of the bishops, and once g5 is coming, we can just take and h4. So black takes and g5, and we are winning one of the knights. So the king is just not in time, and the thing is that in any case this is coming. So g5, we take g4. Of course, this could be also an interesting endgame, even for you to analyze if you are interested. It looks pretty theoretical stuff, so it's quite interesting to know. I would say a5, h4, gh, g5, knight takes on b6, like he's taking a lot of pawns, gf6, for example, knight d7. And black has enough time to collect even this f6 pawn. He will lose everything else probably. I mean, he can only keep f7. So what is that position? That's the question. I believe that's an interesting one. So what I looked up is that the two bishops against a knight, if there are no other pawns, it's a win. So if it starts from a not favorable position for white, it's a win in 66 moves, I believe. If it starts from a better position, then it's a win in 40 moves or something. I mean, it's hard to say, the relevance, but the interesting thing rather is that whether this knight on f6 and pawn on f7 holds, and actually it's already a table-based position as I am counting the pieces, so probably you can get an instant answer on that one. In any case, this would have been a much better defense still than what happened in the game, because in the game it was knight d7 and c6, and allowing the pawn to b7 was just too much. cd, bishop a4, knight b8, and white simply took and bishop takes d6. So this was the second game of Uhlmann, which he won. And just a recent example, this game is in the course as a model game. I lost it against Grandmaster Atalik. So I played queen b6 in this position. Queen c2, a6. So bishop d2, rook e7. Sorry, not exactly like this. Because no, I played king h8 first. So my idea is to play knight g8 and bishop h6. So he went bishop d2, a6. So the point is that if I go on knight g5, and that's why this move is really nice. So if I go knight g8, then white can go g4. And in this way, if bishop h6 is coming, then there is g5. Avoiding the traits, and of course the king is not weak, the bishop can be removed either way, and even the pawn pushed. I mean, there are no black pieces to attack this king. So maybe it's even rather white who can do something on the king side. So a6, rook e1. So in any case, he did everything correct, but there was one different thing. So for example, in such position, I believe it would have been good to play a4. Most probably. I mean, I absolutely did not understand it during the game, and but it looks like that this move could make things really difficult for black. Again, with the idea of pushing a5. And if black would try to play b6, then even then this pawn sacrifice sometimes and bringing the bishop to a4, or just to keep this pawn as a weakness on a5 is very unpleasant. So probably this could be an improvement over our game. where he played really good. So like everything according to the plan. So trading heavy pieces and then pushing on the king side. But I had this b6 idea. And bishop d2, a5. So basically, and this was a pretty good way of playing actually. So knight e2, bishop b2. So bishop is now very good to. So if the knight is coming, then I just take it, and it's not entering. So king h3, knight b8. That's a good move. Knight g3, knight a6, and h5. So okay, here it's still very unpleasant. Maybe f5 was better, and maybe it's winning, maybe not. But in either case, since black managed to close the queen side and even threatening to play some knight before, and maybe even what we did not see in those three previous games, that the knight can enter white's possession. So it's an interesting position to analyze. Again, of course, white is not risking and can only win. But even my opponent wasn't sure that if it's enough to win. He played h5, and I went wrong. So this h5, looked extremely scary for me to allow h6 in one pawn, so close to the promotion. Maybe then the bishop is coming and stuff. So, but I should have played f5 and bishop d1, knight b4, h6. So something like this. And if this bishop would be on b1, then with the threat of knight takes f5, it's most probably winning. But thanks to this knight for the bishop without a trade, it's pretty much impossible to get into that diagonal. And okay, and this position is, I don't know, like, again, interesting to analyze. Like both bishop f5 and knight f5 is a threat in a way. Which one is more serious or not? Or more danger? Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say, but I was just too scared to allow this whole thing with sacrifice, so I rather decided to take. And I would be correct if my opponent has to take, but my opponent does not have to take it at all. He played bishop f5, very strong move, and my weak pawns are remaining. I played like this, and white has only one pawn remaining, but I have two weak pawns to collect. So he collected that one, brought back the bishop, and I actually, not so sure, maybe both lost on time and or also wanted to resign, and I didn't know which one to do first. So, but king h4, knight takes h5 is coming, and I am hopelessly lost. In any case, even according to my opponent, it was not so obvious for white if this is coming. So if he could do the same thing with the pawn on a4, then it could have been different. Once I play b6, he has a5. So yeah, maybe this is something interesting to add to the games of Uhlmann. So I hope it was somewhat interesting for you, this endgame. Sorry about these technical difficulties. I mean, not really technical, but I had phone and not so professional thing. I will improve on it for the next video. So thanks for watching, and feel free to comment and recommend me games that you have seen in the past or recently that you would like to be analyzed. So, but in any case, thanks a lot for watching, and see you in a few days.